Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Legend says that once St. Francis of Assisi asked a fellow brother to accompany him to town to preach. As they walked along, they came upon a woman laboring in her garden, and they stopped to help her. A bit later, as they walked along, they saw a man with an overturned cart, and they helped to right the cart and load it again. Still later that day, they saw a child crying and spent time comforting her. As they headed back to the monastery, the brother said, "Brother Francis, we went to town to preach, but never had the chance." Francis replied, "We have preached. It is no use to walk anywhere to preach, unless you preach everywhere you walk." Wow, what a powerful story to say that our love and care for others may be not only the only sermon some people hear, but may also be the best sermon you can preach. This week we are continuing our year-long series of spending a week each month, highlighting the lives of great women and men of faith whom the Church commemorates that month. And in October, one of those is Francis of Assisi. We've probably all heard of him, and in fact he's one of the few people that everyone agrees is a saint. Nevertheless, most of us are not familiar with the details of his life. When he was born in 1182, he was named Giovanni, a name we would call John today. However, his father, who was a wealthy cloth merchant, began to call him Francis because he often traveled to France on business and admired the French. Interestingly, this name Francis was almost unknown before this time, but has now become a common name. As a youth, Francis had an easy life and worked in some of his father's businesses. However, the ambition of his early life was to become a knight, and he did take part in a border dispute and was captured and imprisoned. When he fell seriously ill, they sent him home, and Francis found that he had a change of heart. One day he met a leper and exchanged clothes with him, giving away his nice clothes and taking on the leper's rags. He set about rebuilding churches, broke off relationships with his father, who was none too happy with Francis' direction in life, and renounced all of his possessions. One Sunday, the gospel reading for the day included the words, "As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those with a skin disease, cast out demons. You received without payment, give without payment. Take no gold or silver or copper in your belts, no bag for your journey, or 2 tunics or sandals or a staff, for laborers deserve their food." As he left the church, he took off his shoes, staff, and cloak, replaced his belt with a piece of rope over his long brown peasant's smock, and began his mission. 10 years later, this was the uniform of 5,000 men. Francis and those who followed him devoted themselves to follow Jesus' life of poverty, preaching by word and example. This was a new vision of Christianity that combined complete lack of earthly possessions with a joyful fellowship together, a strong sense of humor, and delight in God's creation. They traveled widely, surviving by begging or taking on work as they found it. Francis tried to travel to Syria, but was shipwrecked on the way. On another trip to Morocco, he had to go home because of an illness. He did make it to the Holy Land, walking where Jesus walked, and attempted to convert the Sultan of Egypt. In the final years of his life, he withdrew to a remote monastery where he could focus even more on his spiritual life. There, he was the first person to receive what is called stigmata. This means that his body showed the marks of the nails and the spear that Jesus endured on the cross. He had these marks for the last 2 years of his life, although he tried to hide them. In many cases, this is controversial, but as far as Francis goes, it is well attested to. During the last years of his life, he was blind and seriously ill. His last words were the singing of Psalm 142. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Francis actually created the first live manger reenactment to celebrate Christmas. The Church continues to remember St. Francis with the blessing of the animals each year in early October. His humility, generosity, love of nature, simple and unaffected devotion to God have lived on as a powerful example through the generations of the Christian life. May our lives reflect preaching everywhere we walk. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.